What is up, everybody, and welcome to FLW Videos. In today's episode, we will be extending the deep dive series by talking about Groudon. I haven't covered Groudon in the past, but with the recent unlock for the Earth Day perks, I figured talking about Groudon is a very good time to do so. For those of you who are new to the series, what we do is we take a look at a Pokemon, we talk about it in raid battling, we talk about it from PvP, should you unlock a secondary charge move, should you power it up, and then of course taking a look at the future value. So hopefully you are excited about that. And also I do have a couple of channel announcements as well as my plans for GoFest, so that will all be at the end of the video, so definitely make sure you stick around for that. But with all of that being said, let's go ahead and get into the video. Groudon with a max CP of 4,115. Groudon is a pure ground type Pokemon. Taking a look at the stats, this Pokemon is an absolute monster. If you go ahead and check it out, its best stat is its attack stat at 270, ranked at 13th, and it does have an overall rank of 5th in Pokemon Go, of course tied with Kyogre. They have the exact same stats. Other than that, we can go ahead and take a look at the moveset, a very interesting moveset, and then of course a topic of conversation that we will discuss throughout the video. So if you go ahead and take a look, we've got Dragon Tail, Mudshot for the fast moves, and then for the charge moves, we have Earthquake, Solar Beam, and then Fire Blast. So we can of course get a double stab moveset out of Mudshot and Earthquake, and if you are curious about the best movesets from just a general raid perspective, go ahead and check this out. We have the rankings for those. So yes, I do think that this is a good indicator for it. So as many of you might guess, Groudon is considered to be one of the best ground type Pokemon, the best ground type attackers in the game. But there's a little bit of a nuance associated to ground typing that not a lot of people necessarily know about. Maybe if you've been watching my channel for a long time, you already know that I personally think that ground type needs a little bit of an update because it isn't as powerful. We're gonna go ahead and talk about a couple of examples that I do think showcases this perfectly. First things first, what happens when ground type Pokemon are gonna be the only time that it is ever super effective? Of course, we're gonna go up against an electric Pokemon, and why not go up against Raikou? If you check out the results for Raikou, because it is only weak to the ground type moveset, you will see that Groudon is in at that #1 spot, and it does beat out some other options of just general DPS like Rayquaza, Salamence, Palkia, and then of course a couple of others. It is definitely very interesting that you see a bunch of dragon type Pokemon. But what happens when a Pokemon is weak to more than just the ground type? Let's say that it's weak to maybe rock type moves as well. I figure we might as well go ahead and use Entei. So for Entei being a fire type weak to a couple of different types, you will finally see that Groudon slips in the ranks down to the #10 spot. It's beat by a couple of rock type attackers, a couple of water type attackers, and then even some just general DPS just from that dragon typing. So as you can see, Groudon slips in the rankings, but you're like, wait a minute, it's still like the best ground type moveset. But to be honest, it's really because the ground type moves are just simply not as powerful as other type of moves. So even though Groudon has clearly better stats than other Pokemon, it doesn't perform as well just because of ground type movesets not being as good in Pokemon Go. But other than that, a lot of people have decided to use Groudon in another way, and that is accessing the move Solar Beam, which it does get ranked on a couple of instances. So I figured we might as well go ahead and take a look versus a Regirock. So versus a Regirock, if you go ahead and scroll down a little bit to that #12 spot, you will see that Groudon is in there with Solar Beam, and although Regirock is going to be weak to ground as well as grass, you will see that Solar Beam is the preferred option in this case. And unfortunately, it isn't that necessarily impressive of a position to be in at that #12 spot. So we have a very weird situation on our hands. We have an amazing Pokemon that is destined to be successful in the future, but currently how Pokemon Go is created, ground type Pokemon, or especially like the moves or whatever, are definitely nerfed. So that is something that we will talk about as far as the future value is concerned. But let's go ahead and take a quick look over at the PvP. So taking a look at PvP, we will of course take a look at the Masters League. As you will see, as far as just the top 24 are concerned, unfortunately Groudon is not up there in the 24, but if you change up the shielding to a different type, you will see that Groudon actually has the opportunity based on the strategy to theoretically perform well. The only difference is that Fire Blast would be preferred over Solar Beam, mostly just for coverage, to be honest. If you are looking for a Pokemon as it stands right now for PvP, I would say that there are so many other great Pokemon, so many better legendaries, non-legendaries and stuff over Groudon, but if you do want to use it, I mean, you might as well. But I just wanted to give that out there. It's not necessarily the greatest PvP Pokemon. So what are we going to do with this Pokemon? Is it worth powering up? Should we unlock a secondary charge move? What about the future value? Well, to be honest, I think that Groudon is one of the highest potential Pokemon to really crush it in the future. It just simply needs not necessarily just a new move, it just needs ground type to be updated. And then even in the future, if it does get a better ground type move, something like Precipitous Blades, for example, if it gets that, Groudon would be a monster and could overtake other Pokemon of different types that are also like super effective as the same thing as ground type. So we have a lot of potential, and including with that, we do have a primal form for Groudon as well. Maybe this would be some type of opportunity for Niantic to introduce a new move in that type of sense. I'm personally very excited about it. I do think that the future is very good for Groudon, but when we're talking about it right now, what I'm personally recommending people to do is to go ahead and at least invest candy into Groudon. If we end up getting some type of special day with a special moveset, like a legendary raid day, then Groudon would be a monster if it ends up getting itself a new ground type moveset that does make it better. I think it's just a really good set of potential right now. A couple of niche positions where it can perform well. So I do think it's a safe bet now, but it's going to be even better in the future. So definitely keep that in mind. Unlocking a secondary charge move, I'm personally going to say no. It would take a very special case for me to tell you, the viewer, you know, this is a time where a legendary Pokemon is worth it because it does cost 100,000 Stardust. It does cost 100 candy. I personally think it has to be a special case to be able to do that, so I'm not going to give it the clear on this one. What an amazing Pokemon. We're going to go ahead and jump into the question of the day and then head into the announcements. So the question is, what do you think about Groudon? Is it worth powering up? Is there another option that you would prioritize over it? Maybe a non-legendary? Definitely let me know in the comment section below. But the first set of news is associated to the Chicago Go Fest. I am officially going. I will be there on the first day of the event that Thursday. I'm actually gonna fly in that morning and then fly out that night. I've got somewhere else that I have to be, unfortunately. I will be there for one day though, so if you do see me, definitely make sure to stop by and say hi. And then finally, we are selling shirts, everybody. We've got two different variations going on. We've got the typical just FLW video logo shirt, a lot of color variations, as well as a tank top variant. And then secondly, we have a every day is leg day shirt, and I've allowed you to represent your team. We've got three different variations: the blue team, the yellow team, the red team, and then we've got the tank top variation of that as well. I tried to keep the shirts as fairly priced as possible. I kept them all below $20. So if you are interested in that type of thing, definitely check out the link in the description, the link in the comments, and yes, I would greatly appreciate that. But anyways, I hope you did enjoy it, and I will see you next time. I wanted to extend a huge thank you to the supporters over at Patreon. You definitely make this possible, and I 100% appreciate this support. If you are interested in supporting my channel on Patreon, definitely feel free to check out the link in the description.